Go ahead.
Okay. We actually met on Match.com. We both put out, I guess, what are they? Not advertisements. What do you call it?
Profiles.
Yes, a profile. There you go. And within a couple of days, we both got matched. And so we started emailing. And I was almost immediately smitten because I love men who can write well. And he had great punctuation. There were no misspellings. I know I'm a geek. But it was like I was actually talking to somebody. And we didn't actually we went from emailing to texting, and then we eventually had a conversation. It was a while. How long was it before we had an actual conversation?
Several weeks.
And I had given him my phone number, and we were texting, and that was all great. And I'm thinking, why isn't he calling me? Am I just not, that important? What's going on? And eventually I was like, okay, I'm a Southern girl. I can't just call you. And he's like, oh, okay. I didn't know you really wanted me to call. So then he finally called. And we would have these hours-long conversations. I mean, 3, 4, 5 hours a night. It was wonderful.
It was kind of came out of nowhere. I was definitely not expecting to find the love of my life online. So actually, when we first started talking, I really didn't think we were going to meet. She and I were talking, and of course you could see the picture, read the profile, and everything like that. And I thought, wow, this woman is absolutely beautiful, and she's nice, and she's everything. But I just didn't think we'd meet. And so it took me a little while to catch up to the fact that that I wanted more from. And when I say it took a while, our conversations were consistent for quite a while. So we're talking about maybe a week's worth of conversations that were really long conversations and drawn out and in depth before I realized, wow, she's everything. I can't get better than that. That God had placed the perfect woman in front of me, and then it was so.
Well, so something he's leaving out that I to this day I still appreciate. So we did have these hours-long conversations, but apparently some of those hours, Tom had no clue what I was saying because apparently, according to him, I have some kind of an accent, Southern or something. I don't know, and I don't think I do. Do I still have one?
You don't talk like a northern white country boy.
So he told me, I think we were actually married by the time he told me this, that there were many conversations where he did not understand most of what I had said, and that he would stand stock still in a completely silent room trying to catch what I was saying. And did you say you took notes too sometimes?
I detailed notes.
I think that is so. It's embarrassing, but it's also it is so cool that he. When we think about like communication barriers, a lot of times people think about someone who speaks a different language. But I had a dialect that he was not used to, and I also speak really fast, so I'm sure that had a part to do with it too. And to know that he took the time to actually write notes so that we could continue to have these great conversations, that's pretty awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. When we started dating, I told, basically everybody I knew that I found somebody that I was interested in and that we were going to be dating. And of course my family, I told and showed them pictures. And the responses I got were wow. Right? They literally were very impressed. I was glad about that. There wasn't any doubt in my mind that there wasn't going to be any issues or problems, but one of the things that struck me was how obviously impressed with how pretty she was from the pictures, and they were pretty happy that I was talking to somebody, dating somebody that was making me happy. So if you remember when I said that our first date was in January 2010. Yeah, 2010. when I bought the ring, I had gone in and told my family that, you know, I'm going to ask her to marry me. Our business is in a real small town in way upstate New York. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was on board with, you know, what was about to happen, or at least that they knew what was about to happen ahead of time, and that we'd covered some bases. So when I told them, I said, listen, I'm going to ask Renee to marry me, and I just want to make sure that, you know, that there aren't going to be issues, because the potential from what I've seen happen in other, you know, parts of the country and on the news and things like that is there to be some backlash from that, socially, economically, as far as business goes, things like that. And I said, I just, you know, wanted to let you guys know that this, you know, that I'm going to do this, and so if anybody says anything to you, you'll know that that's, you know, I had already asked her. And the response I got from my mom was far beyond anything I could ever have expected. I said to her, I said, you know, when I told her I was going to ask her to marry me, she was so excited about it. And I said, but, you know, the obvious, you know, next question there is, are we prepared for somebody, you know, causing a problem, or, you know, saying the wrong things, coming to the office, spreading rumors in a small town, that type of thing, losing business. And my mom looked at me and she said, if anybody's got a problem with that, I don't want their business. And she wasn't kind when she said it either. She was, you know, fist thumping on the desk, you know. Anyway, it was pretty funny, because my mom's real small and petite woman, and she was adamant on the fact that, you know, if Renee was going to say yes, she was going to be part of the family, that, you know, and anybody else has a problem with that, that's their problem.
We have a bunch of them. So we have kids that we brought into the marriage. And so there are 2 adult males, 25 and 25. And we have an adult daughter who is 23 and has 2 children. So we're also grandparents. And then we have 2 children together, one who is just about to be 6 and one who's 4, girl and a boy. Yeah. And they're wonderful, all of them. I was very nervous about a blended family. So just to be clear, we did not necessarily intend to have more children, because we were going to be the cool, young, empty nesters. Right? When we got married,
we had plans.
We got married, we had 2 that were on the way out of high school and 1 that was going to be out shortly afterwards. We were like, yes, we're going to get an RV, we're going to travel. That's going to be it. I was nervous about a blended family because I didn't know how to do it. I had never seen it be done successfully. I told you I have no siblings, so that was not even a factor. My parents are still married, his parents are still married, so we didn't see that up close. Interestingly enough, even though I had never dated anyone who wasn't black, it wasn't a thing to think about, oh, I'm going to have a white stepson and my husband's going to have a black stepson. It wasn't, I don't know why, it just didn't occur to me. It was like, listen, this is what we've decided to do with our lives, and you guys are going to have to fall in. I mean, we didn't exclude them. They were well aware that when we were dating, they knew. When we were in love, they knew. When we were getting married, they knew. They were part of everything. And it just never occurred to me that anybody would have a problem with there being a blended family. I was more concerned about the fact that I didn't know Tom's kids, and he got to know my son a little bit better because he lived right there with me when Tom's kids were living in a different state. So I was concerned that his kids wouldn't accept me, not because I was black, but just because I wasn't their mom, right? And I was worried that my son would feel like I was trying to replace him, which of course I wasn't. So it was just that was difficult, but it was, for me, it was not a racial thing. It was just more of a dynamics. I didn't know how to be a step parent. I didn't know how to really get to know someone else's almost adult children.
we made mistakes, right? And I don't think that we were fair enough to our older children. Specifically, as far as my part goes, I wasn't prepared to be the stepfather of a teenage young black man. Not that it took me by surprise, right? But I didn't pay enough attention proactively and on purpose trying to be a better father to him, other than trying to be a good husband to his mother, and expecting that because I was now in the house, being a good husband and treating him well, that things would go well, right? And without proactively addressing, the elephant in the room, that he and I, we should have spent a lot more time together, at least even just sitting at the kitchen table talking about life and about what this means, and about what it means to be a black man, what it means to be a white man, what this whole thing is all about. We didn't do that nearly as in-depth as we should. So we never had a racial issue, he and I, but we had stepfather, stepson issues that were probably exaggerated because of conversation styles past, the way he was raised, the way I was raised. So again, coming at that relationship with two different understandings of how life works isn't easy, and it's not easy for an adult, and especially it's not easy for a 17-year-old who at Christmas one year is looking at going into his, looking forward to 18, looking forward to college. Life is going to be pretty much for him like it had been, and then he goes to bed and blinks his eye, and next thing you know, there's a white guy in the house saying clean your room. The culture shock of that, I mean, I know how that impacted me, but I didn't spend enough time trying to be sensitive about how that would affect him, other than just the whole, there's a stepdad in the house. There's a stepdad, and he looks at things differently than I do. Anyway, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
He is, and my life is better because he's in it. Yeah, one person that had told us that it was wrong for us, literally, for us to have children. It was okay for us to date.
Wait,
and
hold
have
on,
fun.
let's be clear. That person did not tell me that.
Yeah.
So.
The person told me that. Yeah, that the dating part was okay. Because that's you should just do things like that sometimes, and that having children, getting married and having children was
they actually said it was not biblically correct.
Yeah, it was sinful. God did not like that. And what was I teaching my older children? That how can that be? Are you teaching your older children that that's okay? Yeah. So anyway, one of the things that bugs both of us, that when people say things like, "I don't see race," or "I don't see color," right? It's not that it's offensive to me, but it's, to me,
it's not true.
It's just not true, and it shouldn't be true. My wife is the most beautiful woman God has ever created. It's not despite the fact that she doesn't look like me. That's because that's the way God made her, right? So for me to look at my wife and say I don't see color or I don't see race, it's ridiculous. Right?
And what purpose does it serve?
And it doesn't. So, and I don't love her in spite of that, or I don't love her because of that. I love her the way God made her, and my children are beautiful the way God made them, right? So they really didn't have much of a chance to form an opinion.
Right. Yeah. Our families themselves didn't meet until
the wedding.
Yeah, until the wedding. So I would like to share, I guess, something about family and a little bit about friends, because I don't have siblings. So for me, a lot of my girlfriends are like my sisters, so I consider them family, right? So I had a couple of actual blood relatives who were a little concerned. I mean, because again, I had never dated anyone who was not black. Most of the people in my family, my aunts and uncles, had never dated anyone who wasn't black. So they were concerned that I was going to be hurt or I was going to be called, unkind names. It was one particular incident where we were going somewhere that was kind of a rural area, and they were like, "Do we need to come up there? Are you sure you want to go out there with them folk?" They were very concerned because not only had I not dated or they not dated someone who wasn't black, they didn't really even have friends that were either. So they just didn't know what to expect. And you don't know something, you just don't know it. But what you do hear are all the bad things that are on the news or stories that other people have related. So they were concerned for me. But it was out of love, I think I was surprised that my blood relatives were absolutely fine with it. What surprised me even more were my friends, a couple of whom unfortunately I'm actually not in contact with anymore, who were so terribly hateful. It was okay when we were dating. It was like, find out what it's like to date a white guy, but they didn't expect it to go any further. And so when it was clear that it was serious because I was wearing a ring, I had a couple people say to me, so you can really see yourself spending the rest of your life with a white guy? And I was like, oh yeah, he is white, but I can see myself spending the rest of my life with Tom. Like that was what it was about. This is somebody who loves me so much. I'm not at all concerned about the fact that he's white. So that was one. Somebody also actually told me that she thought I was not only a traitor to our race, that she believed that a woman should go as far as going to another country to find a black man. So I should go to a country in Africa to find a black man, or go to Jamaica, or go to Bahamas, just to make sure that I marry someone who's black. I had someone who was at the time, he's much older. He was someone who started out as kind of my handyman, and he turned into, he teasingly said that he was my dad and I was his daughter. Again, we're not in contact anymore. He probably will never see this, if I can say it. But he tried to give me advice, and in doing so, he said, I don't think you know what you're doing, baby girl, but we need to keep the race pure. And I'm like, pure? I'm just trying to get married and have a great life. What are you talking about? So those kinds of things really surprised me, because I thought the people that I thought would be against it weren't, and the ones who I thought would just embrace it and be like, oh my gosh, you've finally been found, some of them didn't. So that was...
Jump in, the water's warm. It is really cool. We always have something to talk about, right? Mm-hmm. There's never a time when we don't have things to talk about. I think a lot of couples have a problem with that. We don't. And a lot of the flavor for our conversations comes from, discussions that we get to have. And I mean, we get to have them. It's not like we have to have them. I get to have conversations with my wife about things that I have had no experience with, and I think that's that's really cool. I really like what she said about, we just talked about this, about premarital and postmarital counseling, that it would be a great idea for married couples in general, young married couples, and especially interracial couples, to commit to doing some discussions, even if it's not called counseling, but to spend some time with an older interracial married couple, to have conversations about what these things mean or don't mean, in how to handle them. So I really think that not enough attention is paid to the fact that once you get married, things get tough. If you don't have somewhere to turn, to lean on some wisdom from somebody that's been down that road before, you can make mistakes you don't want to make. Left to the world's devices, we get divorced. The world doesn't want to see us together, right? When it comes to social media, the news, the things that are are given to us to consume as far as information goes. They want us to believe that this doesn't work, which is contrary to what God told us. So why would we listen to those voices?
I think that all couples should go to extensive premarital counseling. Not just interracial couples, but I will say I especially think that interracial couples should do it. And when I say extensive, I know that the general thing is, 3 or 4 sessions, you good. You believe in God, you both good. All right, you love each other, you're great. And then you're out the door. I think that especially if people are coming from very different backgrounds. So Tom and I are not just, black person, white person, city, rural, south, north. Relatively, I would say I was really exposed to a lot of stuff. I'm not saying that you were some cream puff, but relatively sheltered, right? Those are things that we didn't know to ask about. And so we did premarital counseling. We even involved our older kids in premarital counseling so that we could make sure that we were all on the same page, generally on the same page. But we didn't find out until months into our marriage that there were things that we didn't even know we needed to talk about. So that's why I'm saying premarital counseling, and especially if they can find someone who either specializes in or has some intimate knowledge with the dynamics that are inherent when people from different cultures mix, that'll be an excellent thing. I would also say that I don't think that stopping at premarital counseling is necessarily enough. Maybe consider gifting yourself with post-marital counseling or during marital. I don't mean post like you got a divorce. I mean, while you're married, before there's a problem, actually continuing the counseling, kind of like checkpoints. Doesn't have to be something that's every week or even every month, but don't assume that because you got married, all your problems are solved, or you only need to go see a marriage counselor because there's a problem. It's a good thing to stop a problem before it happens. So yeah, I'm just a big fan of having a neutral third party listen to what's going on and helping you come up with some ideas and solutions for either how to fix things or how to keep things really healthy. And I would also say, don't be afraid to have hard conversations. I would assume it's inevitable at some point that one or the other in the couple might say something that is going to appear racially insensitive, and instead of shutting down or getting angry and yelling and nobody's hearing, don't be afraid to say, that bothered me and this is why, and have a conversation about it.